Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Healing with Mel. I'm your host, Melissa Bourbonnais-Infante. Welcome. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you to all my supporters who have gotten behind me to get going on this podcast, and I'm so excited to get started on this. It has been a passion of mine for a very long time, and I'm so happy to get started. So I actually want to begin this episode by reading a little excerpt of my book that I'm starting to work on. Now, the main reason I started this podcast was so that I could get more ideas, speak to more people, so that I could eventually compile all of it into my book and really make it the content that I've been hoping and wanting for. So far, I only have about 2 chapters written, and I have no idea when this book will be finished. I will all let you know when it is. I'm not putting a deadline or pressure on myself for that. So let's start with the intro. I think it's the perfect little intro to this podcast as well. Cult. It's a word used to describe a group of people following beliefs to a level of obsession. Growing up, I didn't know that I was part of a cult. In fact, I myself only started calling it that at the age of 29 when I started my healing journey. Life has a funny way of presenting you with challenges and joys. They are sometimes completely separate and sometimes intertwined. But no matter the circumstances, you are forced to relive, learn, unlearn, and experience life on so many different levels. That is the beauty of it, but also the struggle. Growth is not linear. The story is not just a story. It is my life, my struggles, my joys. I hope you enjoy this journey, and I hope it inspires you to view the world with kinder eyes. You never know what someone has truly lived through. Be kind. So that's the intro to my book. It may stay this way, it may change, who knows? But I guess it's also the beginning and intro of my podcast. So welcome. If you're at the beginning of a healing journey, congratulations for starting it. It's scary, it's hard. I know. I've been going through this roller coaster of escaping a religious cult for 13 years. It's been a lot. But that's the reason why I've started this podcast, because I have learned so many things along my journey, and I'm now wanting to share the things that I've learned, and in hopes that I can help you heal as well. So I wanted to kind of just go through and tell you all my story from my perspective in just kind of general overview, so that you guys know who I am and understand where I'm coming from, because in future episodes I'm going to have guests on with me, and those episodes are most likely going to be focusing on topics that go well with that person. So stories about me may continue to come up in those episodes, but I wanted to kind of compile everything about me in episode 1 so that you guys know who I am and know what I've been through and know why I am perhaps able to give you some advice. It's not professional advice by any means, it's just advice with experience. And yeah, so my whole story starts in Quebec, Canada. That's where I was born. Et je suis française. I am a French Canadian. And I was raised on a farm, dairy farm. And I thought I was like any other normal child. And turns out I was not. So my parents met when they were in their 20s at a church camp in Michigan. I will get into the camp topic at another time. I think that's a great topic to talk with my sister, actually, so we will discuss that another time. I'll keep you on your toes with that one because it's a doozy. So they met at a church camp. They got married 8 months later and had me pretty much a year later. So, yeah. Boom, boom, boom. And that's just how it is in, that religious cult is just very quick. You meet someone, you get married right away, and boom, I was alive. And so being born into this cult, I didn't know any different. I didn't know that the way that we were living was different from everyone else until I started preschool. So imagine little 4-year-old Melissa strolling into her preschool, ready to have fun and play games. And I had nothing in common with the other kids. None. And that continued for all through elementary and middle school as well. Me and my sisters were the only one wearing clothes that looked different than everyone else. We just looked different. We didn't understand a lot of the things that they were saying because we weren't allowed to do those things. And again, I will explain all of these more in more detail. Just give me a minute. So I noticed at a pretty young age that we were different. And I didn't understand why. And it's when I started questioning the why. And the answer that I received from my parents ended up being the same every time when I knew this may not be for me. Because I also noticed many people wouldn't question. And I could tell they were really, really into the religion, and they were invested. Whereas I was always questioning, so I was like, maybe this isn't for me. And I remember the first thing I asked after my first day of preschool, actually, was why did the little girls that I was in school with get to wear pants and I did not? I was a very observant child. I noticed everything. And the answer my mother gave me, because that's the rules, that's what God tells us to do, and if you don't follow it, you won't go to heaven. I'm not kidding. These are the responses I received from my mother and father all the time growing up. Yeah. So, fast forward to middle school, where I really started questioning a lot more stuff. But I wasn't asking my parents the questions anymore. No, I was just asking them to myself and really getting down to my core. Seeing, hey, do I actually want to be like them? Or do I want to be like them, my friends? And so since all I ever knew was the cult side, I was like, let's dip a toe. Let's try. Let's see what it's like over here on the other side of the fence. So what did I start doing? Listening to music was one of the big first things. So in this religion, and specifically by my parents' rules, we were only allowed to listen to music by fellow Christian artists, either within the cult or within the realm of Christianity, so under the evangelical umbrella. So you've got your wow hits, you've got your Michael W. Smith, you've got your Hillsong, the list can go on. If you are familiar with that, then you know what I'm talking about. And so I was like, I want to experience other music. You kind of hear it sometimes on the radio, on the bus, you're on the bus ride home and there's music playing and you're like, what is this? And so I had my first MP3 player in middle school because I had my first job, and I was like, ooh, I'm gonna get this filled up with some good tunes. So I hopped over to a friend's house and we downloaded all the music that I could possibly get onto there. And you could fit like 50 songs on those. the good old days. Early 2000s, my dudes. You guys have no idea how good you have it right now. You Gen Zers, no idea. No idea. Us millennials, we went throat to throat. 50 songs only on my MP3. Oh, we struggled. I'm kidding, you guys. That's like first world problems, big time. Okay. So then I got the tunes and I was jamming and I was like, oh, this is a vibe. I like this. And then I started experiencing more things. So basketball, for example, in middle school, I joined the basketball team for the first time and the soccer team. And I did not want to do that in a skirt because we were only allowed to wear skirts and dresses. I was like, I'm going to get me a pair of shorts. So I went to the gym teacher and I was like, I'm going to wear the uniform. Even though my parents don't want me to, I'm going to wear the shorts. So hand me over a pair. He tossed it right at me. He was like, here you go. Knock yourself out. So I slipped those on and I was like, ooh, these are freeing. So I did not play basketball or soccer for very long because our schools, well, let's just say it's underfunded and parents didn't want to drive us to games and the coaches were never the greatest. We don't need to get into the details of that. It's just how it was. And so I didn't really last on the sports teams, but it was fun to try the shorts for the first time, let me tell you. So that was another dip of the toe. And then in grade 10, let me take a step back for a second. When was that? No, 11th grade. I tried on my first pair of pants. Ooh, the shock. I was at my friend Cass's house. Hey, Cass. And she was, her mom brought in her fresh laundry, freshly washed, and she was about to put them away, and she looked at me and she was like, do you want to try on my jeans? And I was like, okay. Okay. So I slipped those suckers on and holy crap, jeans are tight. I didn't expect it, your legs are just free flowing underneath the skirt and dress for 15 years. I was like, what are this? What is this? But I liked it. I did. Looked at my booty in the mirror for the first time in jeans and I was like, oh, okay, damn. And then I didn't wear them for a very long time. I say very long because, when you're in high school, a week seems like forever, right? I just needed a sip of water. And so fast forward to the first day of grade 12. I walked into high school for the first time in a pair of pants. 'Twas a big step. Now, all of you have never had experience with this type of religion. You're probably like, what's the big deal? It's a big deal. Okay, and again, I will explain all of this in more detail. These types of topics are perfect to discuss with my sister, so stay tuned for those further episodes. We're going to talk more about the specifics of the religion and the whys. So I'm just prefacing my story so that you understand who I am. And then, after the whole pants situation, there was also the realm of dating that I had never really fully dove into because we were told that we weren't really allowed to date anyone outside of the cult. Our parents were both in it, so they wanted us to be in it and marry someone in it. And I was like, hard pass. That sounds horrible. So in grade 10, started feeling more like I wanted to try and date. And it just so happened that my first crush was on a girl. And we all know how religion treats the LGBT community very poorly. That's also another topic that I'm hoping to have some guests on to discuss with, because that's a great topic to discuss. And so since that was a no-no, after about a year of being really close to this person, I ended that friendship. It was super hard. And I felt like absolute shit for doing it. But I knew if I didn't, I would potentially get kicked out of my house, have my parents disown me, no longer to be able to step foot inside the church, which was kind of a big deal at the time for me, because I still had, friends at the church. Even though I wasn't following the religion to the T, I still like to go to see my friends. And that was scary, potentially being disowned by your family and kicked out of the house, which I had heard of people having it done to them before. So I was like, I can't be the one who strays from the path. I can't do it. I can do it in maybe small increments, like I've been doing with, trying on clothing and listening to music and just like dabbling here and there. But that would have been crossing a line that I thought was too scary at the time. So I ended that friendship. And then within a couple weeks, I started dating my first boyfriend, because I thought, hey, if I can't venture down the LGBT path because I was told that was wrong my whole life and I could potentially get disowned, maybe I can try the male route, because that's okay in my parents' eyes. No, he was not part of the religion. Of course, he was in high school with us. He was in our class, and that only lasted about 6 months, because I really wasn't in it. I was doing it to try it. Did not really like the guy. Let's be honest. It was just to test it, to rebel, have that moment. And yeah, when he dumped me, I was definitely sad, and I was pissed at myself for allowing me to fall for someone like that, because he was a bad boy, a smoker, a partier. He hung out with the smokers at the corner at lunch break, and I used to go sit with them because I thought it was cool. I'm shaking my head right now, for those of you who are just listening and not watching this on video. I'm shaking my head. Anyways, so yeah, I genuinely got mad at myself because I had fallen for the guy that my parents had warned me about. That typical guy who just wants to get in your pants and use you. And I had fallen for him, and I felt like shit. And I almost went back into the cult because of that, because I was like, break, my parents were right. But I gave myself, that summer break to process and heal, and I did it on my own, because I had no one to talk to other than my friends. This is not a topic that I could go to my mom about and talk about. No. We'll discuss my parents and that whole relationship in another episode with my sister as well. And then after that, I believe it was the month of October or November of 2009. I was single. Prom was quickly approaching. And so I started perusing the classroom, and I was like, Genesis, he's the one I will ask to prom, because he's still single and he hasn't shown interest in anybody. A friend of mine had shown kind of interest in him, and then that didn't end up going anywhere thank goodness. It was actually Cass. Thanks, Cass. I sent him a message through the student email in the middle of tech class. I was like, hey, if you're still single by prom, can we go together? You want to be my date? Send. And he was like, who the frig is messaging me? Now, mind you, we were only 17 people in this class. Okay, 17. And he still couldn't place my name. Yes, he was the new kid for the last 2 years, and I had just dated his friend. But he still couldn't place me. And then when I walked up to him at the end of class and was like, I'm the one who sent you the message, by the way. He was like, oh. Yeah, sure, I'll go to prom with you. And I was like, heck yeah. And then he, started realizing that I didn't just ask him because it was a pity ask. No, it was because I had feelings for him. I was like, ooh, cute. Look at this cutie with his emo hair on his My Chemical Romance t-shirt. And he's just like right emo in the corner, Yeah, it was during the emo time when we were all listening to like MCR and Data Remember, all the music that would just make us have the emo feels. Good times. And then December 9th of 2009, was it December 9th? Yes, December 9th. December 7th, sorry. I always mix up those two dates because I'll mention that in a minute. But December 7th of 2009, it was right before like Christmas break time, right? He asked me if I would be his girlfriend. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, sure. First loves, high school, 2000s, what a combo. Anyway, so I was like, yeah, sure. And so we were officially dating. And then 2 days later, on the 9th, my grandmother passed away. Yeah. So it was just like this super high, but I couldn't tell anybody about it because we were keeping it a secret because I didn't want my parents to find out because it was a whole situation with the other boyfriend. So I was like, let's keep this on the DL to make sure that like this is legit first before we busted out of the bag. And then my grandmother died. So we were like, okay, we're just going to put our relationship over in the corner because I'm over here grieving now. So that was rough. I'm sure I'll talk about her in some later episodes, but just to preface, she had colon cancer. She suffered for a good part of her life with intestinal issues and pain, but the cancer was only diagnosed probably 4 or 5 years prior to her death. And by the end of it, she had no colon. She had an ostomy bag and a urine bag as well. She was bedridden. She couldn't move. She was just a potato in the bed. So yeah, we expected it to happen when it did, but it was still, a shock. Cancer is a bitch, to put it nicely. Yeah. So anyways, after that, after the grieving process, I was able to come back home because my grandma was in Quebec, so we had to go to Quebec for a couple weeks for the funeral and such. And so, ooh, my bad, booped the tripod, you guys. Just new with this, So then when we got back home, I was still going through my grieving process, but I put on a happy face and just like allowed myself to continue to enjoy my last year of high school and enjoy being in a relationship, like a relationship that felt good. Yeah. And I could tell he was a kind soul, even though he was thinking not with his brain a lot of the time, if you know what I mean, if you get my drift. Boys. Yeah, there was a lot of PDA. Let's not get into that details, but we were gross. So yeah, and then we got to the end of high school. We went to prom together. We danced to You and Me by Lifehouse, and it was like, officially our song. So cringe. And then we both decided to come to Fredericton for college together, or he got accepted at University of New Brunswick for sciences and, what was it? Some sort of sciences and English program or something like that. He didn't know what he wanted to do yet. Whereas I knew. I was like, I'm going to massage school. I'm going to be the best massage therapist on the planet. Here we go. So we both moved to Fredericton together. That whole move situation was a moment. You know what? I'm telling my story. Might as well share that part too. So the last week, right before I was meant to come to Fredericton, Jen and I decided to have a phone call. He was already here for his frosh week at UNB. You know, he was getting plastered every night and going to concerts, and he was having a time. And he was like, oh, I can't wait for you to get here, you know? Because for some reason, my college only started in the first week of October. I don't know why. And his started in September. So he was already enjoying, you know, the university life at least 2 weeks prior to me getting to Fredericton. So he calls me up and he's like, I can't wait, you know, we're gonna have so much fun when you get here. I'm gonna get you your first, you know, cooler pack of booze, and we can drink, you know, together in my dorm room, and you know, you'll be safe there, and you can just like try it for your first time. And I was like, okay, yeah. We are a pair of idiots. You know why? We had this phone call on the damn landline. Again, Gen Z, you guys have no idea how easy you have it with your cell phones. Yeah, we had cell phones, but we didn't have, like, good reception. We didn't have long distance calling. Like, there was something going on with our phones that we didn't use it for calling. I don't remember what the issue was. But we called each other on the landline. So, guess who was on the other line? My parents. Yep, so they're upstairs listening in. You would think that, you know, at the age of 18, you know, I'm about to leave the house, that they would be off my case a little bit, but no. The claws were still in. The control was like there. They didn't want to let me go. So of course, after that phone call, my mom just like busts into my room, opens the door, and she's like, hang up the phone. Yes, ma'am. Click. And she proceeds to tell me that it's going to be the same thing as my ex. He's just using you. He wants to get you drunk, have sex with you, use you, and then he's going to dump you. And then, of course, my brain starts going, because they're very good at brainwashing. You know, they've been brainwashing me for 17 to 18 years of my life at that point. So it was very hard for me to turn it off in the moment, to block the brainwashing. And of course I let her get to me right then, and I just started weeping, and I was like, what if it's true? Like, what if she's right? And so she was like, you have to break up with him or we're not bringing you to Fredericton. So right then and there I was like, oh, I understand what this is. I understand what this is. This is them trying to control me for that last little bit, to try even to prevent me from going after my career. And leaving their cage of a house. And I was like, oh, I understand now. Something clicked. And so I said, yeah, okay, I will. She walked out. I grabbed my cell phone this time. Called him, and I was like, hey, my parents want us to break up. And then I whispered, I don't want to, but I'm stressed right now, and we need to only talk when I get to Fredericton. Don't panic. Like, let's discuss this when I get there. But like, for now, like, we have to pretend or like say that we're done. And he immediately started crying because he was freaking out for me and for a relationship. He was like, he was invested. And right there, when I heard him starting to cry, I was like, oh, this is real. This is real. He's not like past boy. He's in this one for real. So I was like, okay. So I let my parents believe that we were broken up. We packed up the car. They drove me to Fredericton. We moved in to my new little apartment. And as soon as they left me, I threw myself a little dance party. I was like, whoa, 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 freedom, finally, baby. And then I called him right away. I was like, can you come over? I'm alone, finally. And he was like, okay. And he sounded so sad. And I was like, shit. So he came over, and apparently he had been crying for a while. Because this was 2 or 3 days, like the phone call happened 2 or 3 days before I got to Fredericton. So he had been kind of left in limbo for 2 or 3 days, contemplating life. Like, did I make a mistake moving to Fredericton? I should have just moved to Ontario with my family. Because his family had just moved to Ontario, and he had also been accepted at the University of Toronto. He chose UNB for me. Yeah. So I immediately told him, I was like, this isn't over. I had to say that so I could get them off my back. I'm free now. I'm all in. Like, can we please, like, continue this relationship? And he was like, yeah, okay. But I need a night to, like, compose myself. I was like, okay, that's fine. So he went back to his dorm. Thought about it. The next day he came over. He was in a much better mood. He seemed happier. He seemed lighter. And I was like, okay, good. Are we good? And he was like, yeah. And then, my friends, we did the deed. Didn't take long, did it? Nope. It was long, though, for us. We had waited a little over a year and a half to even do it, because I was terrified because of purity culture, which is another great topic to talk about with my sister. We have so many good topics to talk about. But yeah, sex was so, like, no in my childhood that, like, it was a big step for me to even do it outside the confines of marriage. So, and then thus blossomed our relationship, and now we've been together for 13 years. So, you know, a lot of people are like, hey, high school sweethearts, that never works. Sometimes it does. It takes some hard work, and you go through some ups and downs. Trust me. We've been through some stuff, but that's okay. That's how you learn and you grow, because you're not going to be the same person you were in high school that you were when you hit your 30s. That's not going to be a fact. Like, you're going to grow and evolve, and if you're not growing and evolving, there's something wrong with you. Change is good, people. So yeah, and then once I graduated from massage school, I started working at a spa. Jen was still in school. Jen went to UNB as a student for 12 years, people. 12 years. My course was 18 months, and I couldn't wait to get out of there. There are 2 different people on this planet, and we are those 2 people. We are opposites. So after my 18 months at massage school, I started working at one of the biggest spas in the city. They have 3 locations here in this city. They're not a chain like elsewhere, but they work with, like, the Aveda products. So I'm just gonna leave it like that because I don't need to say their name. It was a great place for me to get started. You know, I grew my clientele, but then the workplace itself became extremely toxic. Leaving a religious cult and being dunked in a place with 50 plus women who think only of their vanity and, like, oh my god, did you hear what she said, gossip, was not a great environment for me to be dumped in, because I didn't know that that's not how I was supposed to act like, because I had no good role models growing up, and because I had just left the cult, these were now my role models. So guess how I started acting like them? And we were going partying almost every weekend. I started having a pretty intense dependency on alcohol. A lot of people don't know that about me, but yeah, I was partying almost every weekend. The alcohol was there to drown my depression, drown my past traumas, drown the fact that I still felt different and odd and out of place compared to everyone else in my workplace. Because at that point, I still had my very long hair, which is another topic that we will discuss later. But I had never cut my hair. It was past my knees, folks. It was very long. But yeah, I felt like I stuck out like a sore thumb because I didn't know my style and I didn't know who I was. So I numbed myself with alcohol a lot. So those 4.5 years were pretty rough for me. And I chose not to deal with anything that was, in my head. I numbed it instead. But then when 2016 rolled around, Jen and I got married, which was so fun. We can talk about, maybe I'll have Jen on an episode. I think that would be actually really fun. You guys would probably, you guys are gonna, yeah, I think you guys would like that episode. And we can discuss our relationship more in detail and how what his side of it, like what it felt like for him being in a relationship with an ex-cultie. And we can talk about our engagement and our wedding and all that stuff. And becoming parents. Oh, yeah, see, we can have an episode with Jen. It's going to take some convincing, but I think I can do it. And then, where was I? Sorry, guys. I literally just, started thinking about all the things that Jen and I could talk about, and then my brain went, fart. Oh, yes. In 2016, after we got married, I really entered my second real slump of depression. My first one was in high school. Again, we can discuss more of that shit later. But this was my second one, when I really started realizing that I wasn't okay with the person that I was becoming, or that I had become, which was an alcoholic dependent, mean, narcissistic bitch who refused to deal with her past and her trauma. I was a very unkind person, and I apologize to everyone who I hurt during that time. I was not well. So, yeah, when I finally had that realization, I was like, what's it gonna take for me to remove myself from this environment? And the answer immediately was quit that job. But I was like, what am I going to do? I don't really want to go work for another clinic in the city because it's just going to be the same thing. So I was like, all right, I think I'm ready to open my own business. So, sorry, I'm fidgeting. I need to put the water bottle over. Okay. So I made my plan. I started collecting items that I'll need to start my business. I started looking for places to rent, and once I had all of my ducks in a row, I gave my 2 weeks notice, lied about where I was going. I said I was moving to Quebec because that was the initial plan for Jen to go to school in Montreal. And then at the last minute, when I decided to open my business, we looked at our finances and we were like, you know what? I think it'd be easier for all of us to, instead of starting from scratch at a new place, which would just cost us a lot of money and put us into further debt after our very expensive wedding. We can get into that again later. We decided to just stay in Fredericton. He continued and transferred into his PhD with his prof that he was with for his undergrad, and he just continued with his PhD at UMB, and I started my own business, and it was the best decision I have ever made. If you guys are ever on the fence about starting your own business, don't be on the fence anymore. Just do it. It's super empowering. It helps you view your life in a whole different way. So I rented a small little space, and I set up my massage table and my desk, and I ran my first Facebook ad trying to bring some new clientele in, and just kind of get the word out to locally to my existing clients about where I went, because the previous place where I was working didn't allow us to tell our clients where we were going for a non-compete signed contract situation. That was a whole thing. Ridiculous, in my opinion, as a health professional. And it has been changed now, actually, province-wide. As a health professional, you're allowed to tell your clients where you're going now, and before that was not a rule that existed. So our employees, or our employers, took advantage of that and wanted to keep the clients inside the spa so that they could keep the money, which is just ridiculous, because my clients came to see me, not the spa. And sure enough, I have clients who have been seeing me for over 10 years now, and they are my loyal customers. I need a drink. Give me a second. Okay. So yeah, I love my clients. They're the best. So yeah, I started my own business, and after 4.5 years of me thinking that, massage therapy maybe wasn't for me anymore because I was starting to actually hate my career, I realized it was the place that I hated and not the career. Yay. So I had my passion back, and I was working, and I loved it, and over the course of between 2017 and now in 2023, I gained a huge clientele, booked solid for like the year in advance. I was super proud of myself. I am super proud of myself for how far I have come in my career as a massage therapist, because I am a pretty good therapist, if I do say so myself. Clients, please comment below and tell everybody if that's true. Not to toot my own horn, but toot toot. Okay, and then Jen graduated with his PhD in chemistry, finally, after 12 years of school. And then he started working, and that was also the year that I really dove into my healing journey. So we've been now in our home, and I've been running my massage business in my home for the last 3 years now. So before we were in apartments and I was just renting spaces, and now we have our own home, which is amazing. And so when he started working and I started working from home, I had more time alone and with my thoughts for the first time in a really long time, and I hit my next bit of depression. And I told Jen, I was like, I think I'm depressed, and I think it's time to go to therapy for the first time, because I had never been brave enough to do it until that point. And he was like, do it. I support you. Just go. Take care of yourself. And I was like, okay. So I started doing therapy. That was January of 2019, I believe. Or no, January of 2020. Yeah. January 2020, I started therapy. It was really hard unpacking all of my past. It was a journey. And I remember, like, one of the first tasks my therapist asked me to do was to write a timeline in chronological order from the earliest memory that I could possibly remember on my whole life. Write it out. Basically what I've been just sharing with you, but like in more detailed form, and specifically focusing on the traumatic events, the things that I would consider as trauma or that have caused me hurt or affected me in a negative way throughout my entire life. So that was really hard. I had to open doors that I had closed on my brain a long time ago, reopen them, deal with it. And after I had written it all, I let Jen read it, which was a huge step in itself, because that's another topic we can discuss later, but a violation of privacy from my parents was that they used to read my journal, which I didn't know about for years. But anyways, again, we'll discuss that later on. So yeah, I let him read it, and he was super proud of me for opening up and telling him everything that I did. And then the next step was for me to read it out loud to my therapist. I wept the entire time, and it took 2 1-hour sessions to get through my entire timeline. It's a lot of shit, you guys. And I will be sharing the raw, unedited timeline that I wrote in therapy in my book. Yes, I know that's like a pretty huge step and super vulnerable, but I'm ready to do it, and I believe that more people should be more vulnerable and willing to share and open up about everything they have been through, because it's so helpful for other people to realize that they are not alone going through all of this shit. So yeah, then after therapy, you know, during the whole therapy thing, it was probably about from January to February. Yeah, January and February were the big months of like healing. Then March came around, and I started opening up a lot more to my sister, my youngest sister, about everything that I've been doing to heal. And so we started being more open together, and our relationship just solidified, because we were able to discuss stuff that we've been through way more easier. And yeah, that allowed us to bond a lot more as sisters. And then I believe, February 17th of 2020 was the last time my sister and I both chose to cut contact with our parents. It was my mother's birthday. She was on a phone call with my sister, and the only thing she could continuously keep talking about, even though it was her birthday and she could have kept the topic light and happy, the only thing she wanted to keep talking about was COVID, the conspiracy theories, and all of the crap that they were choosing to subscribe to and believe into. We don't need to get into that. I don't care what you personally believe. If you're an anti-vaxxer, or you're a vaxxer, or if you believe in the Trump and the conspiracy theories, okay, believe what you want, but keep it to yourself. That's what I believe. Because as a person who chose to cut all of that media shit out of my life to keep myself sane and to not allow myself to get brainwashed by that crap, because I knew that it's exactly what was happening to my parents, because they were easily brainwashed and they loved trying to brainwash us again. And that's exactly what they were trying to do. They were trying to get us on their train, and me and my sister were already in our train. We were like, we on our train, we're going this way on the track, you guys can keep going that way. And if you can't contain yourself from speaking about it all the time and shoving it down our throats, then we are gonna go our way and you can go your way. And we actually gave them the choice. I wrote them multiple letters trying to get them to, you know, admit to being wrong on multiple things throughout their life. You know, I even sent them my timeline from therapy, and they refused to fully apologize for everything that they did. So I was like, bye-bye. Anyways, again, this is a topic that we will discuss with my sister. So then when that happened, then I felt like something else unlocked in my heart, in my soul, in my mind. And I was like, oh, wow. I didn't realize how much they were holding me back all those years. Like, they were the ones who were inhibiting me. So by keeping them in my life, they were the ones inhibiting me from growing. Because as soon as they got cut off, I was like, I could breathe. I had like so much relief, like this huge weight was lifted off of me. I was like, okay, I can now really start to heal. And that's exactly what started happening. So that was really the beginning of my healing journey. And, you know, within a few weeks after that, I was able to come out to myself as bi, which was a huge step because I had suppressed it ever since middle school. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, I had that that crush and that friend that I had to remove from my life because I was terrified. And so at the age of 29, I was able to actually come out to myself, come out to Jen, come out to a few friends that I trusted most with my secret, because at the time I was still too scared to talk about it. And then now look at me, I'm 31, and last week I posted my coming out reel on Instagram for the world to see, because I'm me, and I'm authentically me now, and it's amazing. So your journey may not look like mine. All healing is different. And like I said earlier, growth is not linear. It's very much not linear. You're not just gonna cruise along and be like, oh yeah, oh, I'm better. No. You're gonna feel like you're gotten better, and then you're just gonna plummet again into depression. You're gonna be like, okay, pick myself up, let's go. You're gonna be climbing that mountain, and all of a sudden you're gonna plummet again. It's fine. It's a bumpy road, and it's okay. You're not alone. And I want you to know that if no one in your life tells you this, that you're worthy. You're worthy of doing the work, and you're worthy to heal. You're worthy in every aspect, and you're beautiful. And if you're not a kind person, you can be kind, and you have to, really start doing that work and dig out that crap that's way down in there that you have been keeping hidden from the world, and just let it shine. Be loud and proud of everything that you have been through. It's the most freeing thing ever. So I think that's where I'm going to end episode 1 of Healing with Mel. Thank you all so much for watching. This episode is going to be available on all your podcast streaming platforms, and I'm also going to be posting the video version on my YouTube channel, which I will have linked in the description of all of the podcasts. You can follow me on Instagram at Melissa Bourbonnais, and I look forward to getting to know each of you. Feel free to always reach out to me, and I would love to chat with any of you. Also, if you want to be a guest on my podcast, I'd love to have you. I'm going to have a submission form for that also linked in the description of this video. So you can just fill in your information, and I can get in contact with you, and we can see if you're a good fit to be on the podcast with me. And one last thing is, if you're feeling like you're ready to start your healing journey and you didn't know where to start, or you need something to kick you in the butt and empower you to take that next step, fill out the form as well, and just let me know that that's what you're applying for. You want my help, that kick in the butt, and I want to coach you, I want to mentor you, I want to help you do that. And also, if any of you are interested in starting your own business, I can help you do that as well. One thing that I didn't mention was that I also started an online business. I am now an online entrepreneur. I help coach like-minded individuals who want to, step back into their power and regain that confidence that they have lacked or lost due to trauma. And I want to help you start that next step into your journey, because that was definitely something that helped me get to where I am today as well. So apply below if you're interested in that. And I can't wait to chat with all of my upcoming guests. I have so many amazing people lined up already to talk to. And if you have any questions for me, I will also have a Q&A section. I haven't decided exactly where I'm putting that yet. I'm going to say for now, just send me a DM on Instagram, and I'll answer them that way. And if they're good topics as well, I'll include them in future podcasts. So thank you so much for listening. I love you all. If someone hasn't told you that yet today, I love you. Remember to focus on you, because in the end, you're the only one who actually matters. Stop listening to the outside noise and focus on what's going on up here and in here. And that's your head and your heart. For those of you who aren't watching it on video, you can see that I'm not pointing. So yeah, I will see you on the next episode. Goodbye.